Hey, ladies and gentlemen, how you doing? This is the Front Door Show brought to you by Fort Fantastic DJ Prieto here, and we do this every day at 8 o'clock. First of all, I'd like to apologize for you guys who tried to Zoom to connect last night. We had the blackout events, so we didn't do it the Zoom. So today's a double. Today we have already scheduled today. We have Wesley, the Whiz Kid, and then at 10 o'clock we're gonna have Nandi Max. So he'll be on here. But before we get started here, everybody, what I do is I tell all my guests, do yourself a favor and introduce yourself. Pretend like somebody doesn't know you. Kind of give like who you are, any websites, that so they can give an introduction.
Is this thing on?
Yes, it is on. It's on the Four Fantastic Events.
Really? No. Hello. Well, I used to be Wesley the Whiz Kid. That's when I was a kid. Now I'm an adult, so it's just Wesley the Whiz now. I've been doing this crap for maybe, I don't know, 30 years. Yeah, about 30, maybe 32 years. Okay. I started doing that when I was 12. I used to like experiment with music and stuff. And one time I heard a lot of the songs on the radio they were playing on WBBN and all the pop stations. But then I heard them remixed on WBMX with the Hot Mix 5, and I was like wondering, how did they do that? And then my father would explain to me that their records had 12-inch versions that were different than the originals. So that's how I started with my passion with music, is back in the 80s. I've always had I don't know, I would say like a good passion for experimental stuff, because experimental stuff, no matter how you play it, you can always go back and switch it around and redo it and stuff like that. So, when I had records, when you first started, I'm pretty sure you were the same way. When you first started DJing, you only had one or two records that you could play that you had, so you had to keep playing those songs over and over again and trying different parts and going to the middle and going to the beginning, the other side, play the dub version, stuff like that. So I was always doing stuff like that. And then, plus my dad, he was into music a lot, and they had a lot of records. So I would just go and
beat Matt.
I was what?
I think we have the doubles, so we can definitely know that we can beat Match.
Yeah. So and I kept a lot of my records from back then too. And sometimes I lend out records and never get them back. Nandi's got probably a whole crate of my records at his house that he probably scratched the name off and put his own name on there.
Hey, no calling out DJs like that, okay? Hey, even though everybody does. Oh my God.
It's the truth though. I mean, if I go through a crate that I have here that I just pulled out of my mother's, I bet you I could find one that has somebody else's name on it. That I had to take a marker and scratch off and put my own name on it. And then if someone else grabs it, they're going to scratch my name off and put their name on it.
So you were saying that let's jump back to 12 years old. You were listening to going back 30 some years ago. That was BMX. That was where you first hearing the Hot Mix 5. Is that where kind of you got the drive per se?
Yes, definitely, because my father used to tell me how they did it. He used to tell me that they had pitch controls on their turntables and how they were able to move the tempos and how did they mix the songs together. He kind of explained to me how to do it, and I was very interested.
Why would he know that?
Why wouldn't he? Or why would he?
Why would he know that?
Because my dad, he was in a band when he was in his when he was younger, and him and my uncles have always been into hi-fi stuff, always. So the turntable that he uses, which he still has now, had pitch control on it. It was an old dual turntable. He's still using it now, and that has a pitch control. So that's how he told me that's how they would move the tempos up and down with the pitch control.
Okay, so you come from a musical family. That I got it.
Yes, yes, basically. Well, when I was little, I used to play the drums. So when you play drums, you like mix with music already. So, always had that beat. Always had that beat. Going on in my head. So, it was easy for me to start. And then to tell you the truth, and not bragging about myself, and I'm not going to be, I'm not saying that I'm real arrogant or anything like that. But when I first started DJing or when I first started mixing, I always lock the beats together. I mean, it was just something that came to me real fast, you know?
No, I can believe that, especially if that's what you heard is the beats because of the drum aspect of it. You
I
know,
mean, it was
so
a
you're
little
gonna
harder
pick
than
up
playing the drums, you know, you locking the beats in with your hand. I mean, it was a little harder, but I always had a passion to do that. You know what I mean?
right.
Always. And I've always
Well,
looked up to the guys. I used to go to those, sorry, COVID-19. No. I used to go to all those parties that they used to throw at, like, you know, Caesar's Inn, and, you know, all those high school parties they used to go, and, you know, and I used to listen to like Nandi and Diamond Boy Dito, Charlie Chaz D, and just to name a few that I would look up to because those guys were doing it and I wasn't, and I wanted to do it. You know, they were doing it. Plus, those guys are like about 50 years older than me, so you know, I'm a young guy. So, and when they were doing it, I was like, wow, you know, they're doing it, and you know, where'd they buy their records from? Where'd they get the equipment from? You know, I was always wondering how they did it. But then on my 13th birthday, oh no, I'm not saying birthday, Christmas, my parents bought me 2 turntables, a mixer, and a case that was homemade, and they were Technics SLBD 100 turntables. They had the pitch control in the front, you know, the little knob that you had to move back and forth. And I used to kill it on those. You know what I mean? But when I saw 1200, that's what got me hooked. And I had to get those. I'm like, God, I want those. Beach Street is where I first saw them. I had to get them, you know. But then I figured out that they weren't available here in the States, so I had to order from Japan. And when I got them from Japan, I finally got them. I was so excited to open them up, and then I noticed they didn't have any needles or no slip mats. So they had to sit in the box for another month.
Wait. So you're telling me something I didn't know. So what year was this? The 1200s weren't available in the States here? What year was that?
It had to be about 1983 or 84, I think it was. I went to Midwest Stereo, and I thought that they would have them. And they said, no, we don't have them. We don't carry those. You have to order from Japan. So I had to place an order, you know, and then I finally got them. They were $900. And they had no needles. But then I had no slip mats either, and I barely had a lot of records. So I couldn't do nothing with them. I had to save up for another month to get the needles for them.
That was anticipation.
Back then, there wasn't a lot of guys doing it back then. You know what I mean? I mean, those names I named are the guys I looked up to when I was younger. You know what I mean? Right. And it just escalated from there. Now I got a huge library of records that I don't know. They're not in alphabetical order, and they're not in order by artists or songs. So if you ever told me, hey Wes, you know, can I borrow Disco Circus? I don't know where it is. I would have to go through a million records to find it. You know?
Right.
So
okay, so you're 12 years old, 13 years old. You get you get the records, the record players and the turntables, and then what are you gigging? Are you in the neighborhood? Are you mobile? What are you doing exactly?
No, I wasn't gigging because I didn't have equipment to do that. All I had was the turntables to DJ with, you know what I mean? And my dad gave me, you know, the speakers and the amplifier to, you know, to hook the stuff up to in your bedroom, right? So I know I drove my parents crazy with that stuff. I know I did. But then check this out. When I was 13 years old, I got a job at the flea market on 14th and Cicero selling records. So you can imagine that I had double of everything, you know? And so, and then before you know it, everybody started coming to me to buy records at 14th and Cicero.
Oh, wow.
Well, I didn't own it. It wasn't my gig. It was Joe and Lois. They were the ones that owned the record. You could say record store in the flea market, you know, and all the DJs used to go to them to buy the records, you know. Like I know, Too Cool Chris used to go there. Bad Way Bill used to go there. You know, they all bought the records from there because it was cheap. It was only $4. There was no taxes. And then when I stopped doing that, I noticed that Andre was doing it. Remember Andre Lopez? He was at the Division Flea Market. He was selling records over there. So I started going over there to buy records. You know,
right.
Yeah. And then he opened up the store, and then, you know, everybody knows that store. We all hung out there. So
Hot jams.
Yeah, hot jams,
Yes.
you know?
Yes, yes.
So I've
So
been doing,
okay, so you're working, you're collecting, you're starting to collect your library per se. There I go with that word per se. You know, they give me shit about it because I guess I say it a lot on the show here.
well, I'm counting.
And then what happens? Are you going? What happens at 16, 17 with you?
Well, yeah, that's when I started doing gigs. I mean, I would grab whatever I had that, to take to these parties. And then, I had all the records already. And, so I had a lot of DJs looking up to me because I had stuff that they didn't have, because
Okay.
we were getting them straight from Barney's, Lois used to go over to Barney's and pick up the records. She didn't even know what they were, all she know is that it was new. I mean, the newest house music was coming out about that time, you know what I mean? So she would grab whatever was on DJ International, or grab what was ever on tracks, or, and then grab the newest import records from, high energy from from the overseas and stuff like that. So she would grab all these, and then we would listen to them once she got them. And then, I would kind of like to be the judge of it. But if you notice back in those days, people didn't really look at records. They would listen to radio, and they would go to the stores and say, I want that song that they're playing on the radio. I want that song that sounds like this, that has the words like this. So we would have it, and I would tell them, this is the one you're looking for. You know what I mean? And I remember that records were $4 back then, and then imports were $6. Right? So I pretty much kept a lot of them. And plus a lot of DJs were, well, you know what? Hey, man, let me get there. You can get another one. And, I was pretty courteous when it came to that kind of stuff. If I had an extra copy of Used by DJ, well, I'll get another one on the weekend. Don't matter to me. You know what I mean?
Right.
So yeah, I mean, that's how I started doing it. That's how I made a lot of friends. I made a lot of connections from the store. Then I started doing, like the same thing that the other guys were doing. Those gigs at the, all the parties, all the hall parties, I call them, where they used to rent out banquet halls, and they would do all the dance parties for those, for Electrifying Sounds. I don't know if you remember them. I was DJing for them for a while, and then, I would get hired to do other, not hired, but put on the flyers to do other things, battle the DJs in different places.
Which halls were they that you were talking about? You talking about the ones in Cicero, the ones up on the south side, or
Yeah, I mean, the only ones I can remember were like Caesar's Inn, and
okay.
I remember that place over on like Cicero and Roberts Road, or not Roberts Road, like 79th by Fort City.
Okay.
I can't remember a lot of the places. You know what? I'm old and my memory sucks. All right. So yeah, man, I got to eat a lot of carrots and shit. So
No, don't worry about it, because if you don't remember, trust me, somebody's going to comment and say the name. They always do on here. So a lot of people are Regent Hall. See, so
there's one right there. Yeah, see, they're Palace Regency. You know what I mean? And that's right over here too. You think I would remember that? Stuff like that. And then you know what? They were just
ball says Regent Hall.
Regent. Dude, he doesn't remember. Dude, come on, Ray. He was still in diapers when we were doing that stuff. Straight up.
All right, so you're doing these hall parties, and I guess you're doing whatever the teenage events, because they're teenagers, right? It's kind of it's teenagers events and stuff like that. So you're getting, so is that where the Whiz kid comes into play? Is
no,
that where
what
how you
happened
get
was, this is how it started. My dreams were brokenhearted, and you didn't catch that, did you?
No.
What happened was, a while back, these guys that were just starting to DJ, they were, I was at a house party, and I was DJing at a house party, and these guys that were just starting to DJ, they had trouble hooking up their equipment to a mixer that they had. And they had 2 turntables, and they had a mixer, and they couldn't get any sound out of it because I guess they didn't have their needles on right. So I hooked the stuff up for them because I already had technical knowledge from that crap because my dad, got me into it. So I hooked the stuff up for them. I cleaned their needles, put it on. I got it working. And then I remember one of the guys that said it, well, how did you do it? And I told him what to do. And then there was another guy behind him that said, because he's the Whiz. So they started calling me Whiz Kid from there. And I stopped. it stuck, and plus it had a W, which is my Wesley, so Wesley the Whiz Kid came out.
Right.
But there was already a Whiz Kid already there. You remember Whiz Kid from New York? Remember with GLOBE? Remember him?
Vaguely, I mean, but it was, I guess it didn't affect here in Chicago because people.
No, but see, he died soon after that. He was a good DJ. He was like from Tommy Boy Records, and he died soon after that. So I guess people didn't really, put two and two together. I didn't steal the name from him. That's what they just started calling me.
Right. David, I did not forget the love can turn around lyrics.
You did forget it because you're like,
it kind of.
When I said it, you were like, yeah,
No, I froze. I froze because the connection. Thanks.
You're like, what are you gonna start talking about now?
So that's how you got the name, Whiz Kid, and that was what? How old was that when you got the name?
13.
Saved?
Yeah, I was 13.
Oh, okay, 13. Mm-hmm. So right off the back, you get the Whiz Kid, right? That's Wesley the Whiz Kid.
Well, back then, I thought it was stupid. But then when I would see these guys everywhere, that's what they would call me. They wouldn't even call me for my first name.
Okay. Well, that's that. I guess that's. That it worked out per se. Here we go with that word again.
Yes.
So you went 16 years old. You're doing all these teen parties. What happens after the teen parties?
Well, I started getting into music production, but I never really put anything out. I had everything to do it. Everything. I had a 909 and 808. I had keyboards. I had everything to start music production. But at that time, I thought it was too hard to get into like labels trying to find you and or me submitting songs into like DJ International or to Trax Records. I was kind of a puss back then. I didn't want to try to do it. You know what I mean? But I had all the stuff to do it. So I never put anything out. But I was kind of like experimenting with both with music and records and trying to add on beats with the music and stuff like that. But then Andre, he bought a sampler, and that was the first time I ever seen one. And I saw him working it with the drum machines and stuff like that. And I was very, very interested in doing it. But I don't know. When my first record came out wasn't until the 90s. And I don't know why I waited so long to do it. I had a lot of stuff.
I think I even did it. I bought my 808. I had the Juno 101. And I think. We can as DJs, we kind of like, I like the idea of making music, but it's a lot of work.
It is.
It's not like we're doing this full time per se. Excuse that word. We're not doing this full time because we're also DJing and we're trying to impress girls. We don't want to be stuck in the studio and stuff like that. So that was the other factor as well. We're dating. We're doing life. Well,
it's not just that too. It's what it is that it's a lot easier for these guys nowadays to make music with a computer. Back then, it wasn't that easy. We actually had to play a keyboard and program drum machines. You know what I mean? And then we'd have to sync them together, going through MIDI, sync the MIDI stuff up with the sequencer, make sure the sequencer is playing all your notes and you're changing stuff. It was a lot of shit you had to do back then. You know what I mean? Not like it is now where you can just sit in front of your computer and just get sounds and drums and everything right on the computer.
Fruit Loops. Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Oh no, I remember because I bought what was the program? And after I bought the program, because I was going to do MIDI, right? Mm-hmm. And that was it. I think it was, I got it downstairs too in my closet, but I put it on my computer just to do it. And I'm like, this is too complicated. And
it's complicated for us. I mean, it was a lot easier for me to hook up my MPC. You know what I mean? That's what I did my first record on, is on the MPC. You know what I mean? I learned a lot of programming that machine from CZR. He was the first one I ever seen that had one. And then I watched him do it. And then I started doing it. And then when I was in the studio one time at DJ International, Tyree is the one who showed me how to do MIDI notes and how to program bass lines and string sounds with that machine. So before you know it, I was doing my own stuff. I didn't need them. I didn't need them anymore. You know, it was cool. I mean, back then, music was music. You know what I mean? I'm not knocking EDM. I do like it a lot. It's just a lot of it sounds the same to me.
Right.
You know what I mean? And don't even get me started on hip hop nowadays, man. I can't even listen to that shit.
I'll say reggaeton.
Well, see, but you know what? There's a thing about reggaeton is that it has melody to it. I mean, there's always a lot of it does sound the same, but it does have a melody to it and has a good beat and good bass line. Other than this rap that they're mumbling and they really can't understand what they're saying, and what they're saying doesn't mean anything anyway. So it ain't like the old school rap, from like the 80s and 90s and early 2000s when we started playing it.
Right. I mean, that is very true. Old school rap or the funk R&B, the stuff that we basically grew up on and stuff like that. There was a different time. It was a different time, and I can even say like the music that the breakdancing when we were doing the breakdancing.
That was the best. That was the best stuff to me. You know what? I'm not knocking like funk music but I was more into electronic, like back in the 80s. So Sonic Force or African Bambaataa, that kind of thing. It wasn't the songs themselves, it was the flip sides, the dub versions that really got me hooked on that stuff. The wild beats with the crazy bass lines and stuff like that, really got me. So I mean,
so the dub side of AEIOU really got you, right?
Big time. But I'm pretty sure you've done it too. Where if you bought AEIOU, it was on Streetwise Records. If you saw anything else on that label, you were going to buy it because you thought it was just like that.
Yeah, well, anything Arthur Baker, that's the way I looked at it. Like, okay, Arthur Baker, that's it. You know what he's gonna give you. That's it. That was what I looked at. I looked at not so much as the artist. I always looked at the producer of that sound because I knew he was gonna do, and it did. I mean, and you remember at that time he had a lot of things. He was recorders and he was sampling and he was doing a lot of stuff. And I remember that music for me was like I hear those instruments and I'm like, oh wow, this is cool.
Yeah, the hard beats and that really structured techno sound that they had. And it was if you notice that a lot of people started following that and then your freestyle came along and then
exactly. That's that and then hence that's why freestyle sounds like it does.
Well, there's a couple things that I skipped about when I first started DJing is that my parents and my aunts and my uncles bought me most of my records. Okay, it kind of sounds weird, but my aunts were into the Hot Mix 5 and they were the ones that were actually, I think they were the ones that got me into listening to that. So my aunt Patricia already had a lot of those records before I even had them. She would buy records and listen to them. And then, so she knew exactly what I wanted. So they would go to the stores and they would buy me the stuff that I wanted for Christmas or my birthday, whatever. So they're the ones that really got me into it. You know what I mean?
So I think Marco Hernandez is online. And he says about he doesn't like electro. It's trash, and I think he's not understanding what we mean by electro because I know where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Because at that time, you were calling it electro, but it's not electro music like in the sense of it, what we think of electro now.
Well, what would you call hip hop bebop?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's electro. It's that exactly that. It's not electro. I wouldn't call that electro. And I think Marco, I understand what he means by electro, and it's not. That's not it. It's I get. Label that used to come out, and for me that was my almost my like second love because that's when I was breakdancing. So anything on that came out with that bebop sound was like for all breakdancers, we're like, oh yes, this is it,
Yeah,
confusion.
you have to
Confusion.
notice something about that kind of music is that the East Coast stuff was different from the West Coast stuff. You know what I
Yes,
mean?
yes.
You had African Bambaataa on this side with John Roca and Arthur Baker, but on the other side you had on California. They're, I'm not dissing on it, but a lot of it was whack, dude. You know what I mean? It wasn't the same as the New York style. You know, their music was so much more electronic and hard banging stuff versus the California stuff, which like Ali and Jerry stuff. I don't know, that was kind of too happy for me.
No, wasn't it more bass like that? That was kind of their in West Coast. It was all bass, like the bass beats and stuff like that.
Well, I think that was more
Okay.
like Florida, Miami was their sound. You know,
Okay.
if you watch the movie Breakin' or you watch the movie Beach Street, they're nothing alike. You know what I mean? Beach Street's more of a drama kind of movie, while Breakin's more of a fantasy kind of movie. But the music was totally different on both of them, with the exception of Kraftwerk, which is my favorite group in the world. Kraftwerk is the one that started that sound. You know, without them doing Trans Europe Express or Numbers or any of those songs, I don't think that that African Bambaataa would even came up with Planet Rock. To tell you the truth, I mean. There's a lot of music history that we could probably go down to and school a lot of the people out there now that are listening to these songs and not realizing where they came from. I can go way back and go on and on and on and on about it, but what for? I mean, music is music. Music is, there's always going to be somebody out there that likes something different than you like. And, I'm into basically everything. I don't just listen to house music or Italo disco or funk, but I also listen to a lot of rock. I have a lot of rock albums. I'm into Pink Floyd and Zeppelin and Santana, stuff like that. And you might think that because you're a DJ that you listen to that stuff all the time, you listen to nothing but house music. No. And or freestyle or whatever. It's no, I don't. Actually, when I don't even listen to that stuff around the house. I listen to mostly rock. I'm into drum and bass stuff. I like a lot of different kinds of music. You know what I mean? So I never stick with one thing. Never stick with one thing. So
all right. So now let's kind of fast forward to you're 18 years old. What happens now? You're 18 years old.
18, I started music production. I'm still DJing. I wasn't like one of those guys that was on flyers all the time. I pretty much started doing that when I met a couple of the guys that were doing it already, that they wanted to put me on the flyers. That's fine. I wait for them to ask me to do it. I don't just go ahead and show up with my crate. You know what I mean? I don't do that. Okay. So when I was 18, I graduated from Morton East. I had plans on going to, to different like colleges, like for music broadcast or for digital media or stuff like that, but it just never happened. You know what I mean? So after that, I just kept doing what I was doing. I never really changed. I kept collecting records and DJing at different places. It's when I hit 21 is when things started changing. Rick Flores offered me a job at Tiffany's, and you used to go there. And I was there till they closed, for like 5 years, you know what I mean? And that's when the music started changing back then, from crossing over from like just regular house music to just doing house music, how can I say, commercial house music. Well, now they're playing the stuff on the radio, So things started changing from there. And you went to Tiffany, so you heard a lot of different variations of house and Italian that we played there. So, whatever. I was at Andre's store every Sunday, Monday. I was there every Monday buying new stuff. And I wasn't buying just the stuff that the DJs were playing. They had, let's say that Dajé came out with a new song, okay, and Kashmir did the remix. And, that stuff was real hot back then. I wasn't just buying that stuff. I was digging through the stuff that he had that he just got in and listening to them. If I liked it, I bought it. I didn't care if people, were going to dance to it or not. I wasn't thinking about that at that time. I was thinking about my love for music, stuff that I liked, right. So if you went to Tiffany's, you probably saw that we played a lot of different kinds of stuff there, not just.
You also had a different crowd there too.
Yeah, because we had a late night crowd because they were open till 6.
Right. But you had this, you just didn't have the Latinos coming from the Latino clubs. You had also the suburban. There was Berwyn clubs. There was all these clubs that were non-Latino. So you get a little white, little black, and a little And you get a mixture of people in there, so you couldn't stick to that one style of music. You had to mix it up. And I remember
Yeah, okay, but it's good that you said that, but don't forget that we didn't have everything available to us back then. We didn't have
Right.
CD players, that we can mix with. We didn't have none of that stuff. All we had was the stuff that we can buy from the record stores. So if the newest salsa record came out and it was popular, if it was on vinyl, then yeah, we can play it.
Right.
But other than that, we only had to play what was handed to us, which was vinyl. You know what I mean? So if you hired a DJ to DJ at your party or your cotillion or your wedding, whatever it was back in the 90s or the 80s, you had to rely on just what you had. And if you hired that DJ, you knew what he was going to play, which was going to be pretty much house and Italo, freestyle, whatever was out on record. You know what I mean? And if you wanted something else, you wanted like salsa, merengue, or anything like that, you would hire a band.
Oh no, I remember my first, I think merengue record was Oga Tañón. Mm-hmm. I was on vinyl. So
yeah, you had to play. You keep playing that same song over and over because it's the only one you had on vinyl. It
was on vinyl. I remember that.
I mean, there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of changes that happened since when I used to work at the flea market in the 80s to now. I mean, or towards the 90s. Things started changing a lot. You either had to keep up with what was going on with either the house and the freestyle, or you stuck with one kind of music, and that's what you were labeled as. Wesley, you could put him on the flyer, but all he plays is house music. You know what I mean? Right. There was house, there was freestyle, there was like Italo stuff, like Energy still, they were still making that stuff back then. And then plus they were just making people who just made dance music. They didn't really call it anything. It was just dance music, like Fascination or Baby Love or any of the Madonna stuff. It was dance music. It wasn't called house. It wasn't called freestyle. It was just dance music. So we had to buy all that stuff. We had to keep buying it. You know what I mean? If you want to be labeled as a DJ who just plays freestyle, then you just play freestyle. You know what I mean? But if you had to go and spend extra money to buy all the stuff that was, even if you didn't like it, you had to buy it.
Or you had aunts and uncles that bought you the records, right? I'm so jealous.
I'm gonna be honest with you. Okay, when Fascination came out with that, Company B, when that came out, I hated it. I didn't want to play it, but yet everybody kept asking for it, so I had to play it. And if you're going to be a DJ and you want to make money, you had to play what was ever popular, and that was popular. You know what I mean? So, believe me, I love music. I love music. There's probably not a lot of genres out there right now that I don't like. I mean, I like a lot of everything. You know what I mean? Like country. Like people say that you don't listen to country. Well, I love country. I don't like the older stuff, the newer stuff. I like a lot of the newer stuff. You know what I mean? It's come a long way.
Right.
So I can listen to that all day, or I can listen to, I got all the Pink Floyd albums, and I like listening to vinyl more than listening to a CD. Why? Because the sound is more real, it's changed a lot. If you put in an MP3 or a flash drive or something, you're not getting that vinyl feel of how it's supposed to sound. You know what I mean? You're getting a computer's idea of how it's supposed to sound. You know what I mean? It's not how you're supposed to hear it.
It's supposed to live music. There is a difference, and I get that.
Well, but listen, okay, there's a perfect example right here. If you went out and bought Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon on a disc, and you listen to it, it sounds great. It's a CD, but then you put on the vinyl of it, you're like, wow, there's a big difference in the way that they sound. You know what I mean? It might not be as clear as a CD, but the warmth of that sound is there. You know what I mean? So a lot of people who don't have any experience with vinyl, they're missing out on a lot. Especially if you're a music lover.
So do you okay? And I'm let's make sure that we stay in that realm that you're in. But guys that use vinyl right now, because there are guys that you're doing vinyl, do you find there's a different sound that comes from the guys that are DJing vinyl? I mean, like you said, you
mean nowadays, the way it sounds nowadays?
Yeah,
to be honest with you, I don't think that there's a big difference in the way that they sound. Okay, because it's still a digital sound that you're putting on a record. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But the reason why these DJs now use vinyl because of the feel of how it feels to DJ with something. You know what I mean? A controller or a CD player just doesn't do it. Just doesn't do it. A turntable is always going to be the way to go when it comes to learning or the sound or the feel of real DJing. Well, you really can't call yourself. I don't know. Are you a DJ if you use a controller? I mean, or you a CJ? You know what I mean? Controller job.
Well. See, I mean, for all different reasons is why, you know, like for instance, for me, because I was carrying. Everybody knows about the like eight heads in the duffel bag, 2 of them.
You know, you weren't carrying any records, and you had everybody else doing it for you, man. I have
dude. I used to, dude. If the stories, I mean, dude, when I used to walk at a Quinn 2, I used to have all my records at Malos. They were there. I didn't have to carry anything. But over at Quinn 2, man, I had that, not that milk cart, but we had like this case that hold like almost 50.
Yeah, I remember it. I was there, remember?
And we used to have somebody help me to take it in, take it out, and put it in the trunk, and that's it, you know. And the worst part about it is being home by yourself and having to take that out.
Yeah, I mean, you had to bust out the dolly, you know, just to carry your records in. It ain't like that nowadays. You know what it is? Yeah. It's like people expect you to have this stuff now. So back in the day, if you know, if you didn't have any salsa merengue, you would have to have it on record. But nowadays it's a lot harder because people expect you to have it because they know that if you don't have it, you can get it, you know?
So, well, here. So in talking about music you love, that was the reason why I got into Latin music, because that was the music that I was listening to when I wasn't playing house music and freestyle and dance music and stuff like that. That was kind of my, okay, you know what? I'm DJing at the club enough. I want to listen to salsa merengue. That's what and mostly it was merengue at that time because that was the hot thing right at the time. And that was my alternative, just like you do in rock music. Trust me, I tried rock. I did try Foghat and all that stuff. I tried it, couldn't get into it. But I got into the Latin music, and that was just listening. I was just like, excuse me, even before the club, you know, I think we had the Walkmans with the CD player, you know, we used to have those. So I remember driving to the club with a CD player and a Walkman, and I would be listening to merengue. that was because I didn't want to listen to house music in the car.
Back in those days, you had a big advantage over everybody. Is that because you played different music? A lot of people didn't play Latin music back when you started doing it.
No. This is before I got into the Latin music. I'm talking about when I was at Quinn 2. I used to listen to it, and I didn't even play Latin music at Quinn 2. I think one time I played a merengue, and Don Rado told me, "Hey, stop playing that Mexican stuff."
It was the same at Tiffany's. The same thing at Tiffany's.
I was like, "What?" And it was just to me, it was like, dude. And then I think I had just came back from Miami, and I played La Macarena. You know? Oh my God, dude. And he was like, "Hey, what are you playing that Mexican stuff?" You know, like, okay.
Well, you know what? My memory, I don't have too much good memory on when we were at Quinn Street. I know that we were both there at the same time, and you were there on different nights than I was. But the only thing I can really remember about Quinn Street is the Battle of the DJs that you had there, where I kicked Nandy's ass all over a place. Remember that?
It was you, Nandi Max, Gabriel Rican Rodriguez, and who else? Who else was it?
No. This is what I remember the most about the battle is that you had 4 nights of DJs that were supposed to battle against each other. 3 nights were just the semifinals of people who were going to do it, right? So the first night that you had there was 3 DJs, and you picked the best out of those 3, right? The next night, next Friday night, you had another battle, and then the winner of that 3 will come out. So you already had 2 winners. Third night, you would have another battle, and you would have the 3rd semifinalist from that one. So you already had 3 guys, right? And then the next night was me, Gabriel, and Nandi at the same time. And what happened was we wound up killing all the other 3 that you had. And so you put us all on 3 on the same night, and we were the three semifinalists. So all the other nights that you had DJs didn't even make it because me and Nandi and Gabriel kind of went over them.
Why? I think that was because I was on a number system. If I'm not mistaken, it was on a number system. So
Mhm.
the highest number but when you three played, I think you guys knocked out the three people.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah,
And it
that's
just
right.
happened to be on the same night.
Yeah,
know?
and I was like, but let's be fair. You guys didn't want to do the first week or the second week or third week.
Well,
you wanted
actually,
to see.
yeah, but I didn't know. I had no idea that you were going to throw us all on the same night. You know
No,
what I mean?
no, I'm just saying, all three of you guys did exactly the same thinking. Let the other guys play and let's see my competition before I
Yeah,
go play.
yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
That's what-
90 might have won the battle, but I won the war. So he knows
Well,
if I would have shown up, over there, it would have been a lot different.
Wait. So I'm going to tell you honestly, because I remember there was a discussion after it was all done. And let's be honest here, we can kick ass all day when it comes to mixing, right? But when it comes to that quick mix, that's where that's where the decision is. And I think it was Nandi who, remember that, like, you do your quick mix and then you get the other DJ to play. I think what Nandi did is he put a song that changed tempo right into the middle of it, and to fuck up the other DJ. So what does the other DJ do? He freezes because he's expecting it to be track, beat, beat. Then the song went into like a breakdown or something. And I don't know who it was, but I remember it was like, oh my God, now that you got to wait for. There's no quick mixing because now you got to wait for it to start up again. And now you're like, oh, okay. But I think that's what Nandi did. I think Nandi put a song on that, went into like I don't know, slower or something like that.
Nobody cares about Nandi anymore. He's old news.
hey, trust me, he's gonna be on at 10 o'clock.
Exactly.
So.
And he's gonna be talking shit about me when he's on.
So I remember it, and that was it. The final. It was used three, and I remember you guys. It was a matter of how many songs you could put in that 15 minutes, and that was it. Boom, 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 boom. And then I remember that was you got to turn it over in the next 15 minutes, and the next 15 minutes.
But you gotta admit that all three of us kicked ass on that night.
Absolutely. You guys got three. You guys are telling, and then so. But that was Quint 2, and that would have been about 93, 94, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, about the same time that I was at Tiffany's. That's why I couldn't go to the battle. I was at Tiffany's.
Right. Because I remember that was so. Okay, so you're at Tiffany's, and then go forward. What happens right after that? After the
Tiffany's closed in 95, like right around 95, 96, in the middle, like before 96. And I really didn't DJ that much anymore. I was more of a bedroom DJ then. And what happened was I got a call from Ernie. I don't know if you remember Ernie Pedroza, saying that they needed they needed a DJ at 720 in the catacombs, right? Because that's where he was. He's like, I can't go. I need somebody to go. I haven't pulled my records out in years. I mean, the last time I used it was at Tiffany's. This is maybe 4 years later. So in 1999, he's calling me, telling me. So I had to go and scramble of all my records that I thought I was going to play, right? Grabbed all my records, rushed over there, right? They didn't have CD players yet. All they had was turntables. So all we play was house music in old school. That's all we can do. We didn't have anything else to play. But downtown, they weren't really into the old school stuff that much. They were more into like Todd Terry, Crystal Waters, that kind of stuff, which I did seem to have. I was still buying records. And I started playing down there. And the next thing you know is Ernie calls me up the night after, which was a Saturday night. I can't go in again. Can you go and fill up? Can you go and do the first floor at 720? Well, I went to that too. Yeah. So from there on, Ed offered me the job, and I took it. So
Ed Tunney, you're talking about?
Yeah. He offered me the job. I couldn't resist it. The pay was excellent. So next thing you know, I'm the resident there. On Fridays, I'm in the catacombs, and Saturdays, I'm on the first floor. And then Cheeseball started hanging out with me at that time, and I don't know if you guys know.
Cheeseball. Who's Cheeseball?
Yeah. Anyway, he starts hanging out with me, and the next thing you know, he's there with me every Friday and Saturday, and I would pick him up from his house, and we'd just go over there. We'd stay out there all night, and we go home. Then he started being my MC, so he was the one that was rocking the crowd while I would DJ, you know. But then it took a turn where the music was changing, and at that time, you know, hip hop was the big thing on the radio. You know what I mean? It wasn't just dance music; they were playing everything. So we tried playing one track on the first floor. I remember exactly what happened. We did not get a good response from Ed or his sister. They came in, they almost ran up to us telling us to turn that shit off. We don't want that stuff played in our club. Right? So yeah. I took it off, you know, and I think it was Outkast. I'm sorry, Miss Jackson. Remember that?
Right.
Yeah, that was one of the first songs that we played there. Ed comes up to us and with his sister telling us he doesn't want that played in his club. It attracts the wrong element. Fine. We took it off, back to the same shit we were playing before. A week after that, I think what happened was there was these girls that were there they were there all the time, right? And Ed was always real nice to them, buying them drinks and this and that. And they said, Ed, last week you guys played a little bit of hip hop here. What happened? And he's like, I guess he told them, well, you guys want to hear some more? He's like, yeah, can you play some more? He comes up to us and tells us, play 2 songs. So we played a couple of songs, right? Got the crowd really interested in what we were doing. We had to take it off again, go right back to the music again. Same thing happened the week after. And then it kept happening so much that we were getting mobs of crowd down there. And people weren't able to move from the floors because it was so crowded that they couldn't get through the first floor, right? So Ed's like, okay, well, since you guys are playing hip hop from 1 o'clock to 5, I'm gonna put you guys up on the 3.5 floor, which was bigger. It held 500 people, and we were killing it up there, man. I mean, they knew exactly what they were gonna hear when they went up there. We played from 10 o'clock to maybe 1. We played house. And like, you know, the newest progressive music that was coming out at that time, you know, right. Alice DJ and the Venga Boys and stuff like that. We were playing that stuff, but then from 1 to 5, it was nothing but hip hop, And we changed the game over there by doing that because nobody else was doing it. So at that time, we were getting so crowded up there that they had to start moving to the other floor. So Dynamico, who was the DJ on the second floor, and Andy Lopez, they started playing it because they were taking our, you know, overload and going down there. So they had to start playing it.
And they were playing it in the basement? Is that where they were playing?
No, they were on the second floor. That was on Saturdays. We would play 3.5 on Saturdays, and they were on second floor on Saturdays. And then on Fridays, me and Cheeseball were in the basement in Catacombs playing hip hop. You know, they pretty much changed a lot of stuff. You know what I mean? Those were the days, and I can remember everything about it, and I loved it. I love being there.
So this is before 720 closed the first time, right?
Yes, the second one was called, we call it 722.
Okay. But it says Caesar saying that Spin Doctor was on the basement on Saturday. Was that on the okay? Mm-hmm. So what were you guys playing in the basement at this time?
I think Spin Doctor was playing a mixture of Latin with I think he was playing like a Spanish pop. I'm not really positive on that.
Right.
But I know that Ricky Perez was playing. He plays nothing but like salsa, merengue, and bachata. He was playing none of that stuff. He was playing all that stuff on the first floor on Saturdays, right? And then I think on Fridays it was the same thing. He was there. I think he was there on both nights on the first floor. I can't remember. You know what? I don't know why, but I was there every day, and I still don't remember a lot of the stuff from there.
Well, you were also occupied on the top floor. You were occupied in your floor, so I don't think a lot of DJs they never got a chance to go to the other floors because they were so busy, you know, with what was happening in front of them. So I think that was just normal that you guys didn't like go downstairs and hang out downstairs, listen to a set, you know. So probably you wouldn't know unless someone told you, hey, they're playing salsa merengue downstairs in the basement or in the first floor, or, you know. So I'm sure you didn't get a chance to hear every floor that was going on.
At that same time, maybe about a year that we were there, Ed put me in charge of the DJs. He gave me like a DJ position, right? So I had to make sure that they were sticking to their musics when they were played, because if he didn't, Ed would be on my ass about it. You know what I mean? So because they had a floor system there, and what they would do is he would call the bouncers on the different floors, and he would check with them and say, Angel, what is our percentage? If you were anywhere below 50 or 50, we had a problem. That was because he thinks that because the DJs weren't playing what they were supposed to is why we were have such low ratings on those floors. So, and we had, but me and Cheeseball had the hardest one. We had to keep it 100% because what was happening is that people didn't want to move. If they were up there on the third floor, if they went downstairs, they wouldn't want to go back up because they had to climb the stairs to go back up. You know what I mean? Or use the elevator, which was, everybody was using it at that time. So we had to keep them there. This is what would happen. If you got any other guy to come in and DJ, like a guest DJ, they better be on with the music, because if you lost that crowd, Ed called up there and said, what percentage are we at up there? And we went down to 80 or 70, right away it was my ass. Why would you have that DJ for if you knew he wasn't any good? You know what I mean? So, and then Cheeseball kept the crowd going with his, when he was on the microphone and stuff like that. And the system that we had there and the lights and all that stuff, it was great. It was great. I miss those times. But then when I got hired to do 722, the vibe was gone. The vibe wasn't there anymore. It was.
Well, it also changed different times. The times changed too.
Mm-hmm.
If you remember, I was there, part two. I was there. I remember because I was doing Volcan, and then Ed brought me in as the marketer and promoter to bring in people and stuff like that. So I knew that the crowd was way different than the first one. I knew that was happening. There was also the aspect of Latin music was starting to get bigger.
Yes.
If you remember, it was, and hence that was where we kind of, the second floor was all Latin. If you remember that was Edgar Marroquin, that was Ricky Aguajita, Luis Rivera had also came through.
Edgar was there when I was there too. He was there.
Right. And Edgar, so that's what I'm saying. So Latin music kind of took a forefront. And also 720 part 2, it also kind of, and if you remember, Volcan was a big Latin club. When Ivan got rid of me from Volcan, and I moved all my crowd, my 18-year-old crowd that just turned 21, that was it. It was that generation of college kids that turned 21 that love Latin music. And when we say Latin music, they love hip hop, they love Latin, they love house music, they love reggae. It was that mixture of everything, and probably that was after Convent had stopped, and that whole mixture of that music. It was not the old school music as it was the new school of generations. It was there now it was and even somebody said, oh yeah, that's my uncle's music, this is today's music. That would be some of the things they would say. And I understood what they meant. So that's why I would like, okay, So, and if you remember, again, clientele changed too, because it wasn't just Latinos anymore. Now it's white, black, Asian, Indian, it was all across the board, everybody walking in that door. We had the Serbians and Greeks, and, it was. The
first 720 had a lot of regulars, of people that we knew that would go there all the time and would come up to us and hang out with us. There was a lot of that. 722 didn't have that. It was a lot of people that we didn't know. They would come once in a while, and then they won't come back, and then they would come back later. It wasn't a steady thing like it was when we had the first 720. There was more, I don't know, more friendships that were at the first 720.
Right. But it was also less people at the first one. The second one was an explosion of people. I remember it was just so packed in there, because I remember we had the issue about people getting in the first floor. I remember that was like, we had people coming through the back door trying to get in because it was so packed.
Well, so after I became the head DJ there, I became a manager. one of the managers. I wasn't the store manager. I
Right.
was the nightclub manager. I was one of the managers, and I stepped down from DJing on Friday nights so I can manage. And then I only DJed on Saturdays. But then later on that changed too. Ed wanted me to be the manager. So I managed 720 for 4 years,
Okay.
about 4 years before they closed. And Cheeseball was my assistant. So he was always there, even though we were there on Fridays and Saturdays. He was there with me during the week too, helping me out. You know,
And that was part 2 or part 1 or
Part one.
both?
yeah, one.
Okay, part
Because it
one.
was a
Okay,
lot
part
easier
one.
back then. The first one was a lot easier than doing the second one because Ed was the only owner, and they had a separate owner of the building. You know, Ed was
Right.
the owner of first 720. You know, but then later on the second 720, it was him and, well, you remember the other guys.
Yeah, well, but Ed kind of he wasn't part of that. Ed was part of it in the beginning, and then Ed kind of stepped away, if you
Yeah, but you know
remember.
what it was? It's because Ed has his own way of running things. He has his own
Right.
way of doing things, and these guys didn't want to follow what Ed wanted to do. Ed kind of felt like, well, you know what? If I can't do it my way, then I'm not even going to be a part of this because it's, Ed had his own strategy of the way he did things, and it worked out for him. You know what I mean? He didn't get that kind of
Right.
freedom when the 722 opened. But don't
Right.
forget too that 720 didn't open right away. After I was at 720, I moved to Pasha with Cheeseball, and we
Okay.
were there with Eddie Touraw, and when they did that Unit Productions or Unit Entertainment, we were with them for a while, and that's where I met the other guys. I met like Scream, and I remember that Cisco and Scream. I just met those guys, and they were already part of that team. But then he had me and Cheesebug over there. He had Andy Lopez, and I don't know if Dynamico went, but he had a lot of guys from 720 over at Pasha too.
Right.
And then
Okay.
I guess during that time we were trying to figure out what they were going to do with the building at 720, because I don't know if you know, but Ed's brother-in-law is the one that owns the building.
Right. I remember that, and that was the whole reason why, the fiasco that had happened.
It was a lot of stuff. It was just a lot of stuff going on at the time, and Ed was like, you know what? I'm going to pull the plug because there's just too much going on, and plus of that stuff that happened at E2. That changed a lot of the way that we ran the business because we weren't allowed to let people in only to a certain capacity. And when people will leave, that's when we let more people in. You know what I mean? Because of that.
That changed the game of the nightclub business too. The E2.
Yeah, and you know what? Ed had some enemies that were always calling, the fire marshals, and they were always there bugging us, and so Ed's like, you know what? I'm not going to do this anymore.
It's unfortunate. So okay, so here's 720. How long did you stay at the part 2? How long were you there?
I wasn't there long because day one. Well, you know what it was is that I didn't feel comfortable there because it wasn't the same like it was before. Okay, the pay was different. We didn't get paid the same way that we did the first 720, and I didn't feel comfortable being there. But then later on, when they were about to go under, they opened up Republic. But during those times, I wasn't at Republic. I was at Sangria at that time. And Circus. I was doing Circus and Sangria at the same time. And if you know Circus, Sangria, and Republic, they're all in the same building.
Right.
So at that time, the people from Sangria, they hired Angel, which was the manager at 720, to manage Sangria, and he pulled us over there. I said, I want these guys to DJ for me over here, Sangria. Then they had an 80s night over at Circus, and that's when I got pulled into Circus. Then Cheeseball became the manager over at Republic and said, oh, I need you to be here with us playing hip hop in one other room. At that time, EDM was starting to get real big, and they had a whole other side of EDM, and then our side was hip hop. Yeah,
I remember that. It was separated by the curtain.
Yeah, so you could basically, if you didn't have a good sound system in any of those rooms, they would overpower the other rooms. You know what I mean? So it wasn't like you walk into Republic and you get bombarded or like with music. The first thing you do is you hear. I mean, the music is on both sides. You're like, where am I gonna go? You know what I mean? So.
Right.
They had good sound systems on both sides. So basically, if you were in the hip hop section, you wouldn't hear the EDM playing, even though it was only separated by a curtain.
Right. I remember that. The thick thick curtain. A thick curtain.
They both had kick-ass sound systems in them.
Yes, yes.
You know.
So all right. So you're at Republic and Sangria slash what happens next with you?
Well, at those times, well, you know that Republic wasn't. They were doing good, but nah, you know they were in between. You know, at that same time, I started DJing at it was called it's Windsor or it's called Perception now, but back then it was called Senor Frogs.
Was
Right?
it Senior Fund? Not Copperfields?
Copperfields was first. Was back in the
Okay.
80s and
Okay.
90s. Copperfields.
I'm showing my age.
The Senior Frogs, and then I wound up going over there. It was a lot closer to the house. Of course, when Republic went down, I grabbed Cheeseball. He came with me over there, and then we were doing that for a while. And then just things started changing. It was, it wasn't the same anymore. I loved being downtown. I loved having the crowd and having friends that were there. And when the late or early 2000s hit, after the 9/11 thing, things just started changing.
Again, another reason why club situation changed.
Yeah,
First, E2 and then 9/11. It changed the demographics, or should I say the way nightclubs.
The music was changing too. It was. I can't say that I didn't feel comfortable with the music. I kind of did. I got into it. She's supposed to be the one that got me into playing hip hop. I would never play that shit back in those days. He was the one that told me, "Hey, play this, play the song. Don't like it." You know what I mean? But then it started growing from there. It started growing, and before you know, we were downloading all the new hip hop songs and the old stuff to start playing at 720 because we had to fill up that night, man. I mean, we had to fill up the whole night. And if you're gonna play hip hop, and I mean, you could probably go back to house, but you're gonna lose some of your crowd because the people that were up there they love the hip hop more than the house music. So you know what? So we kind of like try to stay with that vibe, and it did work till 5 a.m. We stayed packed until 5 a.m. You know what I mean? Back then I could DJ all night without taking a breath, but now I can't do that shit anymore. You know what I mean? Leave it for the young guys. I do miss it. I miss it a lot, but I don't think that I would ever do it again. I wouldn't do it again because it was, just put it this way. If I had a DJ up there for 5 hours and I had to take a piss real bad, I would have to go and fight my way to the bathroom just to do that. You know what I mean? So I don't miss doing any of that stuff. I just don't. You know what I mean? I guess you could say that. I mostly I calmed down a lot since then, but would I ever do it again? Probably not. No, I wouldn't. Because things aren't that easy like they were before. Don't forget that, if we were there and we drove there, that, Ed took care of our cars, he took care of our valets, all that stuff. It isn't like that now. When I pulled up to Rocket Burger Bar for New Year's Eve, I had a DJ there. I had to pay for my own parking. I had to pay for my coat and to put my coat away, stuff like that. It ain't like that no more. These people want to get every kind of any dime that they can out of you now. It's not the same. Even though you're doing something for them, they pretty much don't care.
Well, I mean, the business as across the board has changed. The nightclub business. In technical terms, let's be honest with you, Wesley. There are a shitload of clubs out there, shitload of lounges. There's shitload. So it's a dime a dozen. So. Whereas before, remember, there was only a few lounges, only a few clubs, and those guys, they were the guys, they were
clubs. But they were clubs. See, a lot of things that are going on right now are bars with DJs.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So it changed the demographics of just in the business aspect of it. There's a dichotomy between owners, bars, lounges, clubs, whereas before you had a kind of a central location that everybody is, they were dealing with the 1, 2, 3, 4 floors, or the 3 rooms or 2 rooms. Now you have your competition is the bar around the corner in the neighborhood. That's your competition and stuff like that. So obviously with Facebook and everything else, here comes 80 people into that place, here comes 80 people into that place, here comes 80 people in this place. So you can forget about, hey, what's the capacity in this room anymore, because everything's at 20%. So it's going to affect a way a club owner is going to feel about paying for this and paying for that, because they're barely making it from the bottom dollar. And it's sad. I get it, and I understand it. It's changed dramatically.
Well, plus at that same time, while 720 was going on, we were changing clubs. I was doing music production,
Right.
and my records coming on Chicago Groove, and I was working at DJ International. Julian Perez he was part owner of Chicago Groove with Benji. And I was doing a lot of stuff for them. What happened was Benji found out that I was real good with working the MPC. He hired me to do ghost production for certain guys that were going in there. And I was doing all their work for them. But then Benji's like, why don't you just do stuff on your own? You just come out with your own album, your own EP. And that's what I did. So like my first record was with them. Well, actually my first record was with, I don't know, do you remember Beyond Ordinary? They had an artist called Fantasia. She did a song called
yeah. From Chicago. Yes.
Yeah. I did all the production for that. What happened was that guy Milo, he was the guy that was doing all the production for those songs, and he gave me one of the records, and I didn't like it. It was just too simple. You know what I mean? So what I did was I took the record and I put a bunch of samples with it and put different beats with it and all kinds of stuff. And then I gave it back to him. I said, look at what I did. And oh man, that's awesome. Let's put it on vinyl. So I wound up doing all the production in the basement of DJ International and Underground, and we put the record out. But it wasn't exactly what I wanted it to be, because he still had his hand in the jar. But that's where I started. That's where the album started coming out with my name on them. You know what I mean? I had a Korg M1, and I was doing a lot of my production with just that one keyboard, drums. Synthesizer sounds on bass lines, everything came out of that one keyboard. And when I was short to him about what I did, he wanted to use it in his production, but I was kind of skeptical about giving my stuff out to somebody. So I just redid the stuff that they wanted me to do. It didn't come out exactly the way I wanted it, but it did come out. And it was a lot better than what the shit that they were doing. You know what I mean? So that was the first time. And then when I don't know if you know it, but I did the editing for the first CZR record that came out.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's called, I think he named it Dance to the Drummer's Beat, Dance to the Drummer's Beat, that's what it was called. He needed me to go in the studio and put pieces together that they had for one track, and I was in there for hours piecing all that shit together. And then me and Caesar started working together after that, and then I just started, about time for me to start putting out my own stuff, and I did it. But then later on, I was trying to build a family at that same time, and it was kind of getting into my family stuff. So I stopped doing it, but I kept my MPC, kept all the stuff I could have been doing. I could have been doing stuff like CZR was doing, or DJ Jess, or any of those guys. But I stopped, and I should have kept it going, because I always had the sounds in my head. You know what I mean? I always had the will to make something sound different, or to be kind of like how do you call it? I like to bend sounds and make sure and see how they sound differently. I don't know if you call it like a music engineer, or I don't know what you call it, but I was always in my basement trying to get different sounds out of something. But at that time, I was afraid to put that stuff out, because it wasn't what was going on, and I didn't know if people were going to like it or not. So I didn't even bother doing it. I did give a couple tracks to Rocky that he did press, but they never distributed it. So I do have the records, but he never put them out. I don't know why. I don't know what was wrong with that.
Oh, there were a lot of stuff that Rocky did that, but there was so much music out there that he had and stuff like that.
Rocky's to tell you the truth, Rocky was a cool guy. When he first heard my music, he didn't even he didn't flinch and say, you know what, none, I don't like that one. You know, go to the next one. No, he pretty much liked everything that I had. You know, but when it came to putting the vinyl out, I don't know what happened with that. I really asked him either. You know, I know as I got the test pressings of them, none of them have my name on it, so I really can't tell everybody. Hey, look what I did. You
So,
know,
so let's go forward into after the um, you do Republic, and now it's coming to the 2010s ish, 2012. What are you doing? What are you doing as far as you say you got a family? You're just kind of, are you still DJing? Are you gigging? Or are you just doing guest spots? And that what are
well, yeah, but you know what? You probably know it too, Angelo. That DJs are a dime a dozen now. They weren't back then. You know what I mean? If you, it was hard for you to buy equipment back then. If you wanted to be a DJ, you had to buy turntables and records. Then CDs started coming out. Then you had to buy CD players, and the CD players were expensive. Then you had to make CDs or buy CDs to do those. The whole thing about being a DJ changed when controllers came out, because controllers can mix for you. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that all DJs that mix with controllers are bad. I mean, but because that's all you can afford, it's all you can get. You want to mix music, you buy a controller. But it's, I know they're going to bash me for this. I know they are. But I do not consider DJ with a controller DJ. And why? Because it's too easy. It's too easy, dude, to DJ with a controller. You know what I mean? I mean, doesn't Serato have that thing? I mean,
I don't know. I don't use Serato, so sorry.
I heard someone else. I'm not using it, but I heard from Serato that there's a function on there where you can actually, and Virtual DJ has it too, where if you actually throw the song in the wrong place, it puts it on beat and in the right place for you.
No, it's a sync. It's a sync button that you can press the sync
No, but
button.
there's like a function on Virtual DJ where it asks for the beginning of the songs. It tells you, I don't know what they call it, but if you actually throw it in the wrong spot, it'll put it on for you. So you,
I mean, I think I know what you're talking about, but I'm sure there is.
so
You know, there's pros and cons to it all and stuff like that. If you're a true vinylist and stuff like that, you're gonna do like almost like Victor does. You know, Victor Salazar, he's still doing the vinyl. You know, you have the control vinyls and stuff like that.
well, yeah, well, dude, that's what we're doing. When I use Serato, I'm using my turntables, you know, because that's what I feel more comfortable with. Even though you could probably do more with a CD player because it's the pop, you can go higher in the pitch control, stuff like that. But
Well, I think controllers are just easier to manipulate the song as far as loops, breaks, and changing and stuff like that. Because especially if you're quick mixing, that is so much more convenient. Because you got your cues and stuff like that, and you can do
this. Okay, if you're like me and you, okay, if we're DJing at a club and we're using turntables to DJ with Serato, I think that's a more of an impressive look when you look at it. But to tell you the truth, a lot of people aren't looking at that. They're just hearing it. So if you're a DJ that goes and plays nothing but mashups, do you really think the crowd's going to notice that you're not doing it?
There's DJs that do it.
Hey,
and there's 150,000 people that watching my line. I'm not gonna mention names, but they think he's the best and stuff like that. I mean, it is, I'll give you a perfect example. And I don't mean to talk about me, but I have to talk about the time that I was using a CD player with the Pioneer 502, right?
I'm getting my pillow ready. See, let me lay down.
and it was all it had was a loop button and a pitch control, right? So there's no cues, there's no nothing. And I remember I'm playing at McCormick Place, and I'm doing the web, I'm doing all the, and basically I'm creating my own music at the point because I'm creating a loop, I'm doing the sample, and I'm scratching and stuff like that. And I just remember the crowd. There's 4,000 people in the whole field. They start running up to me, right? They're running up to the stage. And I remember one of the DJs that we know, holy shit, what the hell is this? You know, and he's just like amazed because I'm not doing vinyl. I'm doing it on CD players. And I think that's what makes you, whether you're a controller, your CD player, vinyl, it's what you, if you're smart enough to utilize what you have in front of you. I think that what makes the DJ. Yes, controllers are easy, but it isn't just the controllers. Yes, the controllers can make you mix easier, but you know, and I'll give you a perfect example. I seen Metro, DJ Metro, use a controller and use CD players, and I'm like, wow, because that guy is utilizing the scratching, the mixing, and stuff like that, and able to, you know, and creating it, and creating the mix, and from to see that live and to see that like holy cow, and to do things with what you have in front of you that nobody else is doing. I think that's what makes you the DJ. Yes, controllers are easy, and I agree. You know, but if you got just like the records, vinyls, and I remember that the guys that used to bring it, put 5 vinyls on this side, 5 vinyls on that side, and we know what they were gonna do. You know, click, 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 click.
Also, too, but see, when you see like DJ Metro or Flipside on a controller, you know what they're gonna do already. You already know that they're not gonna fake it. You know they're not gonna fake it. They're gonna be 100% real on those things. You know what I mean? They know that. So you don't. If Flipside or Metro were writing or in the same room with me, and I wasn't really watching what they were doing, I know that they were doing it live. I know that they were. I know they weren't pressing buttons or pressing the same button. I know they're doing it live. But see, there's guys out there that love music. Okay, you can love music, just like I do. You know what I mean? And you can go out and you can buy a controller for, I don't know, $100, $150 for a cheap controller that still has a sync button on it. You're not really learning anything by using the sync button. Okay, you're not learning. What you're doing is you're letting the computer do it for you. You know what I mean? So if you really want to have a passion for DJing, go to a friend's house who has the real stuff. You know what I mean? Learn from that. That's what I would do. If you can't afford it, sorry. You know, so go to somebody's house that has the stuff to learn it. My son, who DJs downtown, he never really learned how to, I never really taught him how to do it. I taught him how to throw in stuff, but I never really taught him how to do it. He pretty much learned from playing with my turntables. That's how he started doing it. You know what I mean? So if I ask my son, you know, Julian, what would you rather be using? You know, or can you put the 1200s out?
Wait, you named your son Julian?
My son's name is Julian, not after Julian Perez.
Okay. Wow, you're like the guy, huh?
I knew you were going to say that.
It's okay. I named my daughter Angela. Wonder why? So it's okay.
I'm thinking about that. Why? So, you know, I think that a controller is more of a convenience tool rather than a starting up tool. A controller is for DJs who already know how to mix. You know
agree. I mean? Agree 1,000% on that. I agree 1,000% on that. I agree. I think
it's easier for me to take my controller to a wedding or for me to grab my turntables and my mixer because it's a lot heavier and I got to hook the stuff up. And, you know, controller's a lot easier for me to carry around. You know what I mean? So it is for convenience. Basically, it is. But I see them adding all these new features to them every day that helps the DJ not be a DJ anymore. You know, you can program a whole playlist and it'll DJ for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a whole different thing. And then, you know, that's why I said, you know, it's the thanks a lot, Victor Salazar, making fun of my per se. I mean, that's what. So let's fast forward to current situation. We are in a situation where the pandemic has basically closed down all the clubs, has closed all the venues up and stuff like that. Where do you think this is going to take us now? Now that we've already experienced, 9/11, we experienced, the other club where, you know, so this
I
is
think
the
what I
new.
think is going to happen, dude. I think that the clubs are going to have they're going to have a lot of hard times opening up because of not just because of the COVID-19 thing, because of the riots and how, you know, the black people against brown people. You know, they're going to have a hard time with that. there's going to be troublemakers everywhere. Okay, that don't think the same way that we do. You know what I mean? So, with me, I have a lot of friends that are black. I'm not I'm not a racist. A lot of my friends are black. But to tell you the truth, just like I said, there's gonna be people out there that don't think the same way that we do. So if you go to these clubs, people are gonna be scared because they don't know what a person's gonna do while they're in there. We don't know. Look what they're doing now. They're not stopping. So
Well, we had the same situation with 9/11. You didn't know if someone's going to bomb the place and stuff like that. Of course, everybody was scared that, the things were going to happen. I want to believe that there's still good in this world.
there is.
I want to believe that, but I also believe that what we do is real important because I think we pretty much with our art, and let's face it, what we do is art. I don't know if you, I think everybody there has to agree with me.
Of course it
This
is.
this is an art.
Yeah,
And
we're taking sounds and we're making people hear it the way it's not the original what's supposed to sound, but when you mix sounds together, you're actually remixing the song and you're making people think, oh, well, you know what, that sounds good the way they did it. So that's the whole reason why we do this.
Right.
I mean, I don't know how it is for you, but the reason it is for me is because
So
I want to hear
with that,
what was that?
I says with that,
Mm-hmm.
I think this is the only way we're going to get this community come back together is with music. I think that's the only way that, because I think music for all across the board is a healing process that happens for people. And, let's face it, we have a rough day, something's not right, where we just turn on the music and it's the way I think for us as a community, Black, brown, white, Asian, all across the board. I think this is probably our time as far as when it comes to people who do music. I think if anybody's to step up, I think all of us being in this industry have to step up.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, but don't forget there's a lot of haters out there, not just people. I'm talking about other DJs that are going to hate on what you're doing no matter what you do.
Dude, story of my life. So, but Wesley, if you already know, that's the last thing I ever think about. I could care less what everybody hates, and as many times as I've been people talk shit about, and I could care less because I know there's more of the people who are going to want than the haters. Let the haters hate, because you know what, they for whatever reason they're hating. Let them, and I think that goes, and I see it on Facebook. We see people, commenting and doing, they're hating on other DJs right now. I hear other DJs doing some stupid shit. Even today, I mean, not today, but yesterday, one of the DJs making a really fucked up comment with this whole looting thing. And I'll say like to everyone, man, we need to step up. I think that's the only way we're gonna make it in this world.
But you know what? The way I see it is that, okay, I only live in Chicago. I don't know what's going on in any other cities or whatever, any other states. But the way I see it is, especially in Chicago, there's DJs out there that will climb all over you just to hear somebody listen to their flash drive or listen to their CD. They don't care how you feel about what they're doing, and they'll deliberately walk over you to do that. You know what I mean? And get a bad rep from someone else, or me talk shit about somebody else because of what they did. They do it. They don't care how they do it. As long as people are listening to their stuff, they don't care how they're doing it. You know what I mean? And to tell you the truth, I grew up where I'm pretty, me and you both grew up in this at the same time, and we were raised to not be like that. But you know, I'm not. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not like in a hurry for people to hear me DJ. Okay, you remember back in the day, there was always some DJ that was always at a party you were DJing at, some kind of like a hall party, where the guy brought in his records and then he was waiting right next to you with the two records he was going to start to play after you were done, waiting there. Mm-hmm. That's desperate to me. Okay, you want people to hear you and you're desperate. I'm not going to be like that. I'll wait till be called. Hey, Wesley, you're up. Okay, good. I'm not going to sit there right next to them and have my records ready to go on. Okay, it's not that important to me. Okay, they're going to hear me regardless. You know what I mean? Whether they have to hear me now or later, it doesn't matter. I'm still going to go on. Right. You know what I mean? I guess that after a while of going to all these parties and doing all these gigs, you learn a lot of things from doing those. You know what I mean? There are still some guys out there that don't think the same way that we do. They want to jump on right now and they want the crowd to hear them right now. And you know, when you do an old school party or something like a house party, I'm always listening to the DJ before me, so I won't get mixed up in the stuff that he was playing. I'll try to do something a little bit different than he was doing because I don't want to be labeled, oh, well, you know, you sound just like the last guy, you know?
Exactly.
You know, so it's hard, and you have to be fluent with your music, and you have to have a lot of it because if you don't have that music, okay, because guys like me and you and Nandi and all them guys, if a guy was on before me, if you were before me and you played a lot of house like Yolanda or Dajé or like the 90s stuff, and you played a lot of stuff and you had the crowd going crazy, well, yeah, okay, I would have played that stuff too, but I'm gonna have to go through my music and find out and listen to what you didn't play. And if I don't have that music, if all I had was the same shit that you had, well, then here I am trying to be just like you. So, you know, you have to have different music. If you played Dajé and Yolanda and, you know, all those songs, that means I'm going to play Cynthia. I'm going to play I'm going to play Remember or Love the Music, you know, or the stuff that you didn't play, maybe Magic Feet or, you know, in between those. But if you don't have that library, you're screwed.
Okay, so that means your next live stream that you're gonna do Pink Floyd, and you're gonna do country music, right? Is that that's what you're gonna do, right?
Oh, okay. Cutting crew, right? And the cutting crew guys, what they do is we try not to schedule times that that other DJs are on. So if let's say that Tito Hernandez on, which is one of the guys I look up to because that guy could throw down with vinyl, man. And he was on, and then I don't know, DJ Dave C was on after him. I wouldn't go over the broadcast. I would wait till we're done and then say, okay, I'm going to go on after that. But then they get that text, and then none of them will go over me. You see what I mean? Right. So I will listen to what they're playing, and then I would make sure that I kind of like don't play the grooves that they were playing. You know what I mean?
Right.
Just like if you went on. You know,
right.
I'm not going to play the same stuff you just played. What would be the point of that?
Well, you know, I don't know if you know, Pablo and I, I'm working with him for that silent that.
Oh yeah, Force Preserve thing.
Yeah, the Force Preserve thing. We're gonna do that, and I don't know if you've seen. We're limiting it to. Right now, we're at. It was 200 headphones. We're down to 181 headphones now. So, and in technical terms, that's not 19 people have bought the headphones. That means like two, you know, there's probably 9 couples have bought or rented the headphones. So, you know, when it's all said and done, if we get 50 couples, and I don't know if you've seen the picture of the Grove.
Yeah.
It's God, it could fit 1,000 people in the Grove, so you got plenty of space, you know. And I had somebody ask me, well, what's the monitor and stuff like that. And if you've never done a silent party before, there is no monitor. You have to literally one ear is the silent.
I'm gonna be honest with you, I can't do that. I can't have music in my face. You know what I mean? Straight up. And the one thing I forgot to mention is that around 2007 and 2008, I was on the radio. Remember? With
that's right.
and Gooch, DJ Gooch, Tim Schomer, Brian Middleton, and
Right.
who else? Oh, Boogie. Boogie was on there.
Yes, yes,
We were
I remember that.
we were on 100.3. For 4 years we did that, man. 4 years we did it, and we were kicking ass with that, you know. But then they pulled the plug after Brian Middleton couldn't do it anymore. Tim Schomer's the one that got me on there, because he wasn't sure if I was gonna like pull through and do the mixes or not. Because he's like, oh, well, I don't know if you're gonna do the mixes every week. Can you do it? I'm like, yeah, I can do it. But I don't know if you listen to the station. We were a lot different than a lot of other stations. We didn't play the same stuff everybody else played. You know what I mean? It was mostly 80s and 90s stuff, but it was stuff that you didn't hear in the mixes, like Suzanne Vega or Seal, that kind of stuff.
Right.
A lot of stuff that you wouldn't hear in the mixes that we're playing now. B96 and when 103.5 was around at that time, they were kind of similar in what they played. We didn't play none of that. We played a lot of stuff that you usually didn't hear. Jody Watley, a lot of funk stuff. I would say like Queen or what's his name from the Eagles, Don Henley, that kind of stuff. We were playing that kind of stuff. It wasn't usually in the mixes, but we did have 12-inch versions of those songs. You know what
Right.
I mean? We were mixing with that stuff at there. So we got a lot of listeners. So I think that the highest, last time they checked the ratings for that show, I think we topped out at 850,000 in one night. And that was every Saturday night. We would get 850,000 listeners. You know what I mean?
Nice. Very
Because
nice.
they wanted to hear stuff that was different. You know what I mean?
Right. I think that's what's going on today, man. I honestly think that today's market right now, and I think this is what this world needs now, something different. It does, I love. It's not like I don't love the old stuff, but I like hearing something different. And I think that's where it's going to cross the boundaries, and I was on another interview and they were talking about the breakdancing that I was involved with back
Mhm.
in 1980s. And I said, with 125 members, that was the reason why the people from the north, south, east, west, that's why it crossed boundaries. And what you mentioned about your radio station that you were on, yeah, I mean, I'm sure it wasn't, all the stuff you were playing wasn't a demographic. It was probably all across the board, 850,000 people. And if you listen to one station, kind of know what kind of people are listening to that music. But if you're playing different stuff, I think that's what people want. They want the different stuff. I look at the guys who play, when I was mixing Kazumba, that's a style of music, and it's totally different. And I would get people, oh, what the hell is that? This 8 years ago or 9 years ago, people tell me, oh, what is that? And I say, oh man, this is Angolian, and that's French, and it's different.
Well, you got to say, at least people that are our age right now are scared of changing the way that they listen to music. Okay.
Mhm.
I mean, you always find us listening to the same shit over and over because that's what we like. That's what we grew up to. That's what we thought was music back then. Now, I don't even call the rap that's out now. I don't even call it music. It's just crap. I mean, I'm not. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna say it. Cardi B is one of the worst rappers I ever heard in the world. Worst. Okay. Her, 2 Chainz, Future, any of them. None of them guys are rappers. You want to hear a real rapper? Jay-Z's a real rapper. Okay. That kind of stuff back then in the early 2000s and they're up, that was real rap music. I mean, that's when it was good. When actually they had good music, even the beats were good, the music was good, the raps meant something. Now, I can't even understand what they're saying. I have no idea what the hell they're saying.
You mean Snoop Doggy Dogg?
I mean, come on, think about that. When Dre was putting out, when he was at his peak, when he was putting out all his stuff, you didn't go and listen to the stuff that he was putting out. You went bought the CD because you knew it was going to be good.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Because you knew that.
I agree. Puff Daddy and all, dude. That was I loved it.
Jay-Z, Biggie Smalls. I even consider Tupac a good rapper. There's a lot of good rappers that are out there, but now this music has turned to shit. It did. It went a whole different direction, and I wouldn't even listen to anything that they put out nowadays. I don't know if you read my.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, so you have a choice. Turn it off. That's all good.
Big time. Well, I don't even listen
right.
to the radio anymore. I really don't. It's either Spotify or Pandora or I listen to XM radio with the funk stations or the disco
Right.
station. I don't listen to any of the stuff on the radio no more. Why? Because everything I hear is shit. And it's I don't mean to sound like a dick, man, but it is. I mean, I don't know how you think of it. It's not music.
Well, that's and that's why I went in a direction with the video mixing, because there's so much new music out there in the video mixing. For me, it was refreshing, because there was not just this new sound, it was new sights as well. So that's what, and let's be honest with you, that's what happened with reggaeton, because it was sexy now. It was, it wasn't just the sound. It's like, it's funny.
Well, don't get me wrong. There is still some good stuff out there. I mean, there's some stuff that I would still play. Stuff that has real good energy, good beats. Raps are pretty good. Stuff like that. There's stuff that I play that that's real good. Reggaeton, they never go wrong with me. That music never goes wrong with me. I mean, they always putting out good stuff, even with the new artists like, with Bad Bunny and, J Balvin and stuff like that. I mean, they're putting out really good stuff. So I would listen to their stuff. I would actually play their stuff. But when it comes to hip hop, I have to be really selective when I play that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Understandable. Hey, listen, it's we've gone past our time. In half an hour, you're gonna have your nemesis. We're gonna be talking to your nemesis. He says he's got the video of the battle.
But I still haven't seen it yet.
So this is the first time he claimed it, right? He had the video.
Well, he told me about it. He told me that he had it. He said he knew where it was, and he told me he was gonna put it on digital so we could see it. But you know what I think? I think that he's probably gonna say, "Oh, well, something happened when you and Gabriel were on. All I got is me doing it."
Oh no. You know what? Let's be honest with you. He was filming on beta back in the day. So, I don't know about you, but I would find it real hard to convert beta to digital right now.
Well, he just bought the stuff off from like eBay to do it. So I know he's done it.
So yeah. So
I'm gonna be honest with you. Nandi was one of my guys that I looked up to when before I was doing it, because he was doing it before me.
Yeah, he was doing it for quite a long time. It was
the people that I remember from back in those days, like Diamond Boy Dito. I know probably him, and Charlie Chaz D, Wen Paez, and all those guys. I was looking up to those guys. I mean, they were doing it and I wasn't. And I was kind of jealous of them by doing it. But me being experimental with my music is what got me here. You know what I mean?
Right.
I encourage anybody that wants to experiment with sounds, or if you want to remix a track, by all means, go and do it, because that shows that your interest in changing the way music is supposed to sound. Kraftwerk, they've been around since the 70s. They're the techno pioneers. They had a certain sound that nobody can touch. Even to this day, nobody can even sound like that. You know what I mean? So I encourage guys out there to follow your music passion and to change the way music sounds. I encourage it 100%, because that's what I did. My son's doing it. I didn't, even though, he comes from a musical background, and my father and me and my father's, all my dad's brothers were drummers and singers. So we always had music in our family. Just like I told you, my aunts are the ones that bought me my first records. So there was always music in our family. And for my son to pick it up was a no-brainer. He knew he was going to do it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Good for him, and good for you as well.
I mean, there's a lot more we could talk about. I could ramble on for hours, but I know you don't have the time.
Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me, man.
It was good talking to you, because I haven't talked to you in a while. We don't get a chance to, communicate as much as we used to, because sometimes,
think of it like this, back in those days, we didn't have families. So it's like, it was a lot easier for us to go move around. It's not that easy.
Well, that and we would see each other at the clubs. We would be at the same. That's how we kind of seen each other. We say, hey, or somebody's birthday. Kenny Jam and Jason's birthday, so we all get together for that or something. Like that.
I don't understand why we don't do it more. You know what I mean? Why don't we?
Well, I agree. So let me sign off, and then we'll talk a little bit off camera. All right.
Okay, you know, one thing before you leave and you go
Go
into
ahead.
make sure he's wearing pants
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
because he's disgusting. Really, come on, Andy. Really.
Maybe you would know that. I wouldn't know. All right, guys. That's the front shore. Thank you. See you at 10 o'clock. All right. Talk to you later. Thank you, Wesley.
Yo.